And so I think it was like knowledge guilt of like, I know all this, but to admit that I am struggling with this felt wrong because I hadn't been through something crazy hard. I hadn't like lost a parent or, been through something traumatic. So I don't have a right to have anxiety. And so I think in such an intake generation, you intake the information and you want to like show what you know and help other people. But you can't help other people until you're well yourself.
You just hit a point that I think people need to stop, re-listen again, because it's comparing each other's anxiety. Well, I haven't lost a loved one, or I haven't done this, so then that means that I don't have the right to have anxiety.
Exactly.
But when we peel back the onion and we look at, you've already mentioned a few things just in the first 8 minutes of this, that you deal with perfectionism and you deal with overachieving and striving and those sorts of things. So that leads me to my next question. You deal a lot with youth and ministry and leadership and ministry. How are you seeing, besides what you're dealing with, how are you seeing anxiety just run rampant in this next generation?
Oh my gosh. I think it's just like infiltrated the church because you're seeing these Christian influencers, which is beautiful, that they're sharing the gospel, but they're not sharing the hard things of life. And so I think you look at people, I'm not going to name names of influencers, but they'll post all these things like in a coffee shop reading my Bible, but you have no idea what they're going through. And so you'll see like these youth going to these conferences and getting spoken to at huge, huge conferences by people who aren't actually sharing like vulnerable things. And so they're like, am I a good Christian if I'm struggling? And so, and this isn't something that I've seen in my own church, but more on like the large scale church thing is like you see social media and things like that playing into the Lord is so good today. And he is, but it's also like the Lord is good even when things are hard. And I think we miss that step a lot of times. And so when I talk to people and I talk to my friends, it's just like, wow, like look what they're doing, all this stuff. And it's like, we have no idea. We've never met these people before. And so it's this unrealistic standard of like the coffee shop Christian girl kind of thing. I feel like that is creating this.
It's a filtered Christianity.
It's a filtered Christianity, absolutely.
Wow.
And so trying to make your lowlights be their highlights is like, 100% of the time I need to be 100%, which is not what God has called us to be. I mean, we were just talking about at church how he said it's going to be easier for the prostitutes and the tax collectors to enter the kingdom of heaven than the Pharisees. And so I think you're going to have a lot of anxiety when you're trying to live a life convincing everybody that you're perfect. When as Christians, our job is to convince everybody that Jesus is perfect, not convince them, but like share that Jesus is perfect. We're imperfect. And that's what's the beauty of a relationship with the Lord. And so, when I talk to people with a lot of anxiety of like, am I not good enough? Am I doing something wrong that I'm not living this life that's like picture perfect?
And that's what social media is doing to people. It's curating things, making everyone see the highlight reels. And so therefore, when you do have a breakdown or you do get into a space where you've been the last 6 months, I can't share this. I can't tell people this. I can't. So how does that lead into decision paralysis? What does that look like?
I think for the first time in history, our generation sees the highlights of the what ifs decision. So for me, I was thinking about going to work at Life Church out of high school as a worship leader, intern kind of thing. And so I followed them and did all this stuff. And through like a lot of prayer and stuff, I decided to go to Mizzou, which I hated. I hated Mizzou. I was miserable. I was lonely. I lived on a co-ed floor, so I constantly felt unsafe. I was trying to navigate how to deal with the relationship while also maintaining independence and making friends